Hello, everyone. My name is Shin, and I'm a research scientist at Uniswap Labs. Today, I'm presenting the cost of swap or swapping on the Uniswap protocol and some other stuff that we couldn't fit into the paper, but hopefully they're fun. This is joint work with Austin, who is my colleague at Uniswap Labs, Ben, who is a PhD student at Cornell Tech, but used to be a research fellow with Uniswap Labs as well, and Sarit, who is a professor at Northwestern University. So today I want to talk about really two things. First, I want to establish a baseline for DEX trading costs, and I'm calling it the first baseline because I'm not aware of any other sort of precise quantitative measure of DEX trading cost that has been done before. So hopefully this serves as a reference point for all future protocol changes and improvement proposals and so on. And then second, in sort of a separate, unrelated, but related but not too related manner, I want to talk about and propose a new metric called reordering slippage. And hopefully you guys can walk away convinced that this is a new metric that's innovative, important, and we should have more of it. And then I'm going to mingle some other important interesting stuff within these two, but they're not going to be in a separate section. So the first baseline for DEX trading, let me just go into it a bit later, but these are the two that I will talk about. So part one, let's talk about DEXs. Traditionally, exchanges are centralized entities like New York Stock Exchange, Binance, where Alice and Bob, if they want to trade anything, they have to talk to this guy, Fred, in the middle. And so if Bob wants to buy, Alice wants to sell, Fred has to literally match their order. But there are issues with this arrangement. What if Fred runs away with the money? And we've seen many such cases before. What if there's order book manipulation on behalf of either Alice or Bob or Fred? There's only a list of approved things that can be traded, and the barrier to entry, either as demander or supplier of liquidity, is pretty high. So here enters blockchain, where things can run autonomously. What if we just run the exchange on the blockchain? That's sort of the promised land of decentralized exchanges, where there are no centralized gatekeeper for participation. There's full transparency when setting prices. And in fact, that's the whole reason we're able to do this research today. There's no custodian or counterparty risk, and they can't run away with your money. We, as developers of the Uniswap protocol, can't really touch anything that's being processed by the protocol. That's currently the biggest application of the blockchain, by the way. Uniswap protocol processes about $1.3 billion of daily volume in 2023. I think that's going to be higher in 2024 given the market, but we shall see. And it would be nice if I can say they swap happily ever after. Thanks for listening, but that's not really the case. There are issues or problems with the current DEXs in terms of implementation, compatibility with Ethereum, and so on. But let's talk about them. The first problem we have is this guy. It's Jared from subway.eth. This is a sandwich shop, but the sandwich are not the traditional edible sandwich. It's really an acronym, or it describes a type of attack where if you're a user, they front run and back run you, and you're at a loss. So that kind of puts this promised land at risk. Are we really in a land of market manipulation here? So let me show you what a sandwich attack is really quickly. So our victim here in the middle of the sandwich wants to buy 1 ETH worth of this token that I haven't heard of, but that's fine. It's really the attractiveness of permissionless protocols. They can do whatever they want. So they want to buy this, but their transaction sits in the mempool for too long. Jared comes along. Jared buys 2 billion units of that in front of our victim, and then lets the victim transaction happen, and then sells that immediately after, realizing a small profit, obviously at the expense of our victim here. And that's a real problem. A lot of work, including people potentially listening to this presentation, have looked into it. And the takeaway is it's a real problem. I'm not digging up some random example to show you. It's quite prevalent, actually. But many relevant questions related to that phenomenon has not been answered yet. So for example, do the average trader actually need to worry about that thing, as well as gas price, liquidity, LP fees? What are the things they need to worry about? Then as the protocols evolve, strategies are going to evolve too. So how do we measure market action that's not front running or arbitrage? We've written about just-in-time liquidities before. There are many unknown strategies. What are their impact? And then how do we even evaluate the quality of trading on a decentralized exchange? Do we have a baseline for what constitutes a good exchange? Well, yes. Hopefully, I can convince you that this is the first baseline of DEX trading costs that we know of, and that it serves as a good reference point for future proposed improvements. So let me define what the cost items are. First, we have gas cost. This is cost for executing a transaction on the blockchain. It's not really related to AMM, although AMM is like a price taker here. You have LP fees. So this is the explicit fee sort of programmed in the AMM pool. So for example, if you go to a 5 basis point pool and 1 basis point is 1% of 1%, then you are explicitly taking out 0.05% of your input and giving it to the pool for accessing liquidity in the pool. So that's like a fixed parameter. You have price impact. So that's your predictable cost component due to finite liquidity. You can think of this as the difference or percentage difference in your execution versus the hypothetical scenario where you're trading against a pool with infinite liquidity at mid-market price. And finally, we have slippage. And that's sort of a kitchen sink item here, where we're saying, anything that's a surprise to you from quote to execution, either positive or negative, we're going to call it slippage. So the first three, you actually get a pretty good estimate when you're trading on any popular interfaces for DEXs. And we're calling anything that comes as a surprise when actual execution happens slippage. And positive slippage or good slippage, meaning you're executing at a price that's better than your quote, and negative is bad. So another way to think about total cost, meaning the 4 things added together, is how much worse is your execution compared to a blockchain with no transaction costs that runs an AMM with 0% LP fee, with infinite liquidity at the mid, and no change from quote to trade, right? Nothing happens from when you get a quote to when your trade settles. So the data sets that we're going to use to establish the baseline is about eight months of data from the Uniswap Labs interface, on-chain data, mempool data from BlockNative and Bloxroute, and big credits to them for helping with this research. we're going to look at two pools. The first pool is with USDC, 5 basis point pool. And this is probably the most liquid pool on Uniswap, like period. And then we're also going to look at with Pepe, and that's probably the most liquid meme token pair on Uniswap. So okay, let me first establish the baseline for with USDC, which is the most popular pair ever. And don't worry about the sign here. Even if I said bad slippage is negative, like everything here is a cost. And I want you to pay attention to that number, 22.2 basis points. That is 0.2 cents per dollar swapped. And that is the weighted average all-in sort of price that all traders in this pool has paid over this period. And just for context, in the traditional equities market, people have done, different kind of measurement, but they say, oh, 40 to 100 basis point is sort of the cost of trading. Now, a lot of things are not controlled here, so I'm not trying to make a claim that we're better. But it does put things into context and say, hey, like maybe we can be competitive in certain sense. And after all, you're getting execution that are comparable in some way. Now, the story would change quite a bit depending on your size, right? Do you have a deep pocket or not? And here we're looking at all the trades that are less than $100,000. And you can say that they might not even care about MEV or slippage because most of their cost is gas. And then the rest are mostly LP fee, which is a fixed parameter, and there's really not much dynamic that you can kind of go about and tune. It's just the cost that you have to pay. So maybe you don't really care about MEV if you're a regular trader who swaps less than $100,000 per trade. On the other hand, if you are a whale, as we call it in the industry, and you have a lot of money, you want to trade large sizes per swap, then MEV really hurts execution here. So the blue part and arguably the red part are some sort of MEV that can be potentially captured or even returned to you if you use some specialized service. And so yes, you care about MEV if you're swapping large swaps. What about meme coins? Well, for that, we have a slightly shorter sample. So Pepe only launched on April 20th, so it's about half the time. But we do have a lot of swaps because it's a really popular token. And now I'm putting things side by side. Here you see the with USDC all-in costs in that period, and then here you see with Pepe. And note that the total trading cost is really 9 times higher. And if you look at the attribution here, the two most sort of important item is one, you have lower liquidity in the meme coin pair, and so your price impact is quite a bit higher. And on the other hand, the gas cost, it's a fixed gas cost amount, but because the average swap size is much smaller on this for meme coins, you have less base to amortize the cost over, and so when you take the weighted average, it's going to show up as a higher gas cost item. So yeah, much more expensive to trade meme coins as a percentage of your total volume, and that's due to low liquidity and fixed gas cost to amortize. Does size matter? Well, yes, but in a weird way. If you're trading really small ones, these are less than $1,000 per trade. It's 7% trading cost, really high and mostly gas. as you go higher, lack of liquidity really becomes an issue. And you can see that as you go higher, actually you have a higher trading cost because there really isn't enough liquidity to support trades over 100K. But overall, note that all these trading costs are almost above, or sometimes far above 1%, which is really a lot. So you ask the question, are things really that bad? Well, you've seen it, but there are some hope. So here I'm showing sort of the time series of all-in trading costs as a percentage of your total swap volume. And first, you just see that with USDC is far under in this chart. And for context, this is Coinbase advanced trade. That's kind of the lowest you can get as a retail trader. It's much higher than the on-chain with USDC pair. On the other hand, WETH and Pepe started really high, but has come down rather quickly in just like 2 to 3 months time. And I don't want to extrapolate, but you do see some sign of market kind of formation, or a market getting more efficient over time. So just to summarize, that was the first baseline of DEX trading. We look at major pairs, and they look kind of competitive with either centralized exchange or TradFi at 20 basis points. The MEV component matters more for large swaps, and the meme coin trading are more expensive, but the market gets more efficient over time. Okay, now let's switch gear to something. I was talking about something that's very kind of high-level overview. Now I'm going to really go into the details and talk about a new metric that we're proposing, and hopefully we convince you that it's an innovative and important metric, and we should have more of it. So let's revisit the problem of Jared from subway.eth, i.e. slippage. And just to remind everyone, slippage is this item that's sort of the surprise component. In another word, it is things that happened between your quote to your settlement. If you get a quote, the quote is based on some past blockchain state, and then you wait for a settlement. A lot of things can happen in here. Everything that happens here that touches the pool will affect your execution. So it will show up as either positive or negative slippage. And that's the thing we're going to dive into now. So yeah, that's just an illustration for you getting the quote on the interface. But you might not get the actual quote in execution. So the definition of slippage is really the difference, the percentage difference of realized compared to quoted. And then I'm doing all this like multiply, -1, multiply to kind of express things in basis point terms, but don't worry about that. It's not very important. But now wait, like I claim that not all slippage is bad. Some slippage is in fact benign in the sense that it's kind of a bad luck. So here I also define adversarial slippage as slippage caused by people who's actively taking advantage of your transaction. So for example, Jared. And then collision slippage are caused by other people who they just actually want to do something in your pool, but accidentally they've caused your execution to be worse. So suppose you get a quote, and then after you've gotten the quote, but you didn't sign your transaction yet. Someone actually sent a transaction there. So they don't know your transaction. They couldn't have been taking advantage of it. but their transaction indeed settled before yours, making your transaction worse, that would be an incident of collision slippage. Now, using mempool and bundle data, we can actually categorize realized slippage into adversarial and collision ones. So here's how we categorize them. For adversarial slippage, the definition is difference in execution result caused by transactions that we have strong evidence of hostile intent. And in the paper, we go into a lot of details about how we identify these evidence. But an example is if there's a bundle, and the bundle has your transaction in the middle with two trades, before and after, one going in the same direction, one going in the opposite direction, then we know for sure, almost for sure, that this bundle was sent by someone who is trying to take advantage of a transaction. And we can actually simulate how much you would have got had that bundle not been there. And so if you were not front run, we know your results, and we know your actual results. We can calculate the difference. That would be adversarial slippage. And then collision slippage is really just everything else that it happened, but we don't have evidence on hostile intent. Once we kind of figure out what slippage has been empirically realized, we can analyze the empirical distribution and figure out sort of what are the factors that affect slippage. Here I'm listing one regression we did on order size, gas price, last returns, and so on. So I'm not going to go into details here because I still want to spend more time on reordering slippage, which we yet have to get to. But I want to highlight that we have these cool empirical results where we show that all these factors actually have pretty significant impact on realized slippage. And just to highlight two things, I think adversarial slippage strongly correlated with order size, which is, makes sense because the larger your order, the more likely it is profitable or more profitable for someone to extract. And we quantify the influence. So for every extra $1 million in order size, your swap cost goes up by about 14 basis points. But increased liquidity in the pool, on the other hand, would decrease adversarial slippage. And then, for a pool with less liquidity like Pepe, it's going to be more likely. So average Pepe with swap is 80% more likely to see adversarial slippage. That's all the things I want to highlight, but you would say, hey, nice results. Can I reproduce it? Unfortunately, no. And that's really why we're trying to motivate this reordering slippage concept. So note that if you want to compute slippage, that requires private, hard to obtain proprietary data, in this instance from Uniswap Labs, right? You need the quoted price. And the quoted price is something that's not observable on chain. Only Uniswap Labs knows it because we showed it to them. And furthermore, if you want to compute adversarial slippage, first of all, you need heuristics on what is the evidence, what suffices as evidence, and those are potentially incorrect. On top of that, you would then need other proprietary data like mempool data or relay data, bundle data. None of those data are readily available, and big thanks to Bloxroute and Blocknative for providing us with such data that allowed us to do this computation, but that's not available to everyone, and therefore it will be hard for someone to come on and say, hey, can I reproduce this but on a different set of tokens, different time periods for a different actor? It's just not very realistic. But I still maintain that it's important for this thing to be publicly reproducible in an easy way. Why? Well, that's because for this set of problems created by Jared et al., there has been proposed solutions. And the proposed solution, I think, needs some sort of audit. So let's talk about the proposed solution here. The proposed solution is basically a private mempool structure where if you are an innocent trader, you might be sending your transaction into the public mempool, and Jared is here. So your transaction is potentially falling victim to people like Jared, where they would extract you or extract from your transaction, and then they will send their bundle to the builder, who then sends it to the relay and on chain. But I'm omitting that detail. What Flashbot has proposed in the past and has implemented, in fact, is this private mempool structure where they say, I'm going to keep Jared out of my mempool. If you give me your transaction, I will send it directly to the builder, who will send it on chain. So you're bypassing people like Jared by sending things into the private mempool. But it's called private mempool. It's not really private to the builders. In fact, they see every transaction, and they can pick and choose which ones they want to include in their blocks. So we're trusting them not to extract, but they do have an incentive to extract to make their blocks more competitive compared to other builders. So the question is, can we audit the trust assumptions? And specifically trust assumptions, just to go back, in this chain here. Can we audit if the builder is well behaving in this relationship? Are they really treating things as private, or are they secretly extracting from this relationship? In other words, can we have a metric that, first of all, it needs to capture MEV extraction by any means, because builders don't need bundles. The entire block is like a big bundle for them. Ideally, there's no dependency on heuristics, because again, builders, they don't need a sandwich. They can put their transaction anywhere because they control the whole block. Ideally, there's no dependency on proprietary data. That's why it's important for everyone to be able to run it, not just us together with mempool runners or relay runners. Ideally, this can be computed from on-chain data only and nothing else. And ideally, it empirically matches what we produced with heuristics-based and proprietary data-based metrics. So, okay, finally, I'm getting into the proposal here. The definition of reordering slippage for one swap, just one swap, I in basis points is this. You take the final price given to the user on chain, call it realized price, and then you compute this expected final price of I if the swap in that block was actually ordered at random. So if the block builder has no ordering capability, they're literally just randomly generating ordering for transactions in that block, then you can take the average and call that sort of the expected execution price. So in a parallel world where block building is just randomly generating block orders, then over the long term, for many swaps, that would be your execution quality. And the difference between the two is what we call reordering slippage. So that's the slippage due to any sort of reordering. It doesn't have to be in any pattern or things like that. It's just a kind of a conceptual term. So let me illustrate, right? You have this, let's say in one block, there's 3 transactions that potentially affecting your transaction, but currently it's ordered like this. So your transaction is executed at 1100. Now, we're just going to fully permutate the 3 transactions. So you have 6 combinations. You calculate your price out of all 6. You take the average. That's the random ordering price. And then you take the difference between your price, which is realized, and random ordering price, which gives you this slippage term. Now, I flipped the sign of slippage, so now it's like 9%, but it's 9% bad. So yes, now we have a metric that satisfies the first 4 criteria. We know it captures MEV by any means, well, not multi-block MEV, but within any single block. There's no dependency on heuristics. There's no dependency on proprietary data. Anything can be computed from on-chain data and nothing else. All you need is like this ability to simulate different permutations. But now, does it match well with heuristics-based and proprietary database metrics that we have previously computed? Yes. Well, turns out, empirically speaking, reordering slippage is an excellent proxy for adversarial slippage. So in our analysis, if you go look at the paper, we compare adversarial slippage with reordering slippage, and they're very, very highly correlated, which means it is indeed capturing a lot of the extraction that we have evidence for, and it might capture something else. So we also did analysis on, we did an actual audit of the trusted players and the short stories that we haven't found anything that's conclusive of sort of breach of trust. Well, that might be a short-term good thing, but I think long-term, we either have to fix the trust assumption, or we have to really continually, intensely monitor it, because after all, everyone do have very strong incentive to extract in order to stay competitive. So that's why I think this metric, as a publicly available metric, should be utilized more and discussed more. Okay, that would be everything I want to talk about today. So just to conclude, we provided a first baseline for DEX trading cost, and we show that it's somewhat competitive with SEX and TradFi. We then propose a publicly available metric called reordering slippage, and we think it should be used more, should be discussed more, and hopefully there's productionized dashboards and so on. So that's it. Would love for you to read the paper, and if you want to talk to us, I'm on Twitter, and all my co-authors on Twitter as well. Our contacts are in the paper, so thanks for listening.